The ground trembled beneath Jack McLeod's feet as the alien ship crashed, sending a shockwave through the barren landscape. Dust and debris filled the air, and Jack's heart pounded in his chest. "Holy hell," he muttered, gripping his tool belt tighter. Without hesitation, he grabbed his gear and sprinted towards the wreckage, his mind racing with possibilities. Jack was a miner, like his father before him, on this abandoned planet rich in untapped resources but forgotten by civilization. His days were usually filled with the monotony of mining, but today, something extraordinary had happened. As he approached the crash site, the air grew warmer, and the smell of burning metal hit his nostrils. He shielded his eyes from the glare of the flames licking at the twisted hull of the alien ship. He hesitated for a moment, remembering the hologram message from his father that he kept in his pocket. "Always help those in need, Jack," his father had said. The words echoed in his mind as he took a deep breath and stepped closer to the wreckage. Inside the shattered remains of the ship, Jack saw her. An alien girl, unconscious and covered in strange, iridescent markings. She was unlike anything he had ever seen, yet something about her seemed familiar, almost human. Carefully, he lifted her out of the debris, her body surprisingly light. As he carried her away from the burning wreck, he felt the heat of the ship intensify. The radiation levels were spiking. They needed to get to safety, fast. Jack navigated through the rocky terrain, his legs burning with effort. He knew of an old, abandoned mining outpost nearby, a relic from a time when this planet was teeming with life. He hoped it would provide the shelter they desperately needed. As he entered the outpost, the door creaked loudly, echoing in the desolate silence. He laid the alien girl on an old cot, brushing the dust off her face. She was breathing, but barely. Jack rummaged through his supplies, finding a basic first aid kit. "This will have to do," he murmured, cleaning her wounds as best as he could. His hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from the overwhelming responsibility he felt. The hours passed slowly. Jack stayed by her side, occasionally glancing at the doorway, half expecting someone or something to come barging in. He thought about his father's words again. Helping her was the right thing to do, but it also put them both at great risk. The planet was unforgiving, and now they had an added mystery to contend with. A soft groan broke the silence. The alien girl's eyes fluttered open, revealing vibrant, glowing irises. She looked around, disoriented and clearly frightened. Jack raised his hands, palms open, trying to appear as non-threatening as possible. "Hey, it's okay," he said gently. "You're safe now. My name is Jack. What's yours?" She stared at him, confusion etched on her face. Jack reached into his pocket, pulling out the hologram device. "This might help," he said, activating the projection of his father. The hologram flickered to life, displaying the elder McLeod's kind face and reassuring words. The alien girl watched intently, her expression softening. "Lyra," she finally whispered, her voice melodic yet weak. "My name is Lyra." Jack smiled, relieved to have some form of communication. "Nice to meet you, Lyra. Can you tell me what happened?" Lyra's eyes filled with tears as she tried to speak. "My ship. Attacked. Had to escape. Ended up here." Jack nodded, piecing together the fragments of her story. "Don't worry, Lyra. We'll figure this out together." Just as they began to feel a semblance of calm, a noise outside the outpost made them both tense up. Jack grabbed his makeshift weapon, ready to defend their position. The door creaked open slowly, and Jack's grip tightened. But it wasn't an enemy. It was a hologram message, this time from Lyra's ship, projecting a map. "This shows another base," Lyra said, her voice gaining strength. "We might find answers there." Jack studied the map, noting the location. "Then that's where we'll go," he said firmly. "But first, we need to ensure you're fully recovered. We'll move when it's safe." As night fell, the two of them settled into a wary silence, each lost in their thoughts. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much larger. He glanced at Lyra, her serene face illuminated by the dim light of the outpost. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Jack's mind raced with plans and possibilities. He knew their journey would be fraught with danger, but he was determined to see it through. The words of his father echoed once more, filling him with resolve. always help those in need. And that was exactly what he intended to do. Jack's heart raced as he spotted shadowy figures approaching through the dust. He tightened his grip on his makeshift weapon, a sturdy mining tool, and glanced at the unconscious alien girl beside him. "We're not alone," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. He knew he had to find shelter quickly, or they would both be at the mercy of whoever or whatever was out there. He scanned the desolate landscape, his eyes settling on an old abandoned mining outpost partially hidden by a rocky outcrop. He picked Lyra up gently, her light frame barely a burden, and made his way towards the outpost, moving as swiftly as he could without jostling her. Each step felt like a gamble, the barren terrain offering little cover. The outpost door creaked as he pushed it open, the sound echoing eerily in the empty space. Inside, the air was musty, filled with the scent of old machinery and neglect. Jack carefully laid Lyra on a dusty cot, then set about securing the entrance. He jammed an old metal rod through the door handles, hoping it would buy them some time if anyone tried to break in. Jack turned his attention to Lyra, who was beginning to stir. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing a startling shade of blue that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. She looked around, disoriented, before her gaze settled on Jack. She recoiled slightly, her expression a mix of fear and confusion. "It's okay," Jack said, holding up his hands to show he meant no harm. "You're safe here. My name's Jack. I found you in the wreckage." Lyra's eyes darted around the room, taking in her surroundings. She seemed to understand his words, though her expression remained guarded. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice soft but tinged with an unfamiliar accent. "This is an old mining outpost. We're on a planet that was abandoned years ago," Jack explained. "What's your name?" "Lyra," she replied, wincing as she tried to sit up. Jack quickly moved to help her, but she flinched away from his touch. He stepped back, giving her space. "You're hurt," he said, trying to keep his voice calm and reassuring. "I need to check your injuries." Lyra hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Jack examined her wounds, relieved to find nothing life-threatening. He did his best to clean and bandage them with the limited supplies he had. As he worked, he spoke softly, trying to bridge the gap between them. "How did you end up here, Lyra?" She sighed, her gaze distant. "I was on a mission. My ship was attacked, and I crashed. I don't know if anyone else survived." Jack nodded, understanding her fear and isolation. "We'll figure it out. But first, we need to stay hidden. There are others out there. We're not alone." The mention of danger seemed to galvanize Lyra. She forced herself to sit up straighter, despite the pain. "What do we do now?" "We need to stay low and quiet," Jack replied. "I heard noises outside before. They might still be looking for us." They sat in silence for a moment, the gravity of their situation settling in. Jack's mind raced with possibilities and plans. The rogue miners were a dangerous element, and he had to keep Lyra safe. "We should search this place for anything useful," Jack suggested. "Food, medical supplies, weapons, anything that can help us survive." Lyra nodded, and together they began to comb through the outpost. They found some old rations, a few tools, and a small stash of medical supplies. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. As they worked, Jack noticed Lyra watching him closely, her wariness slowly giving way to a tentative trust. "Thank you," she said quietly, catching him off guard. "For saving me." Jack shrugged, trying to downplay his actions. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Lyra said firmly, her eyes locking onto his. "Not everyone would risk their life for a stranger." "You did." Jack felt a pang of emotion at her words. He hadn't thought of himself as a hero, just a guy trying to do the right thing, but her gratitude touched him deeply. Before he could respond, a loud noise outside made them both freeze. Jack motioned for Lyra to stay quiet, his heart pounding in his chest. He peered through a crack in the wall, his eyes straining to see through the dust and darkness. The shadowy figures were back, moving closer to the outpost. "We need to be ready," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "If they find us, we'll have to fight." Lyra nodded, her expression determined. Jack could see the resolve in her eyes. She was a fighter, just like him. Together, they prepared for whatever was coming, knowing that their survival depended on their strength and their trust in each other. Jack's heart raced as the sounds of footsteps grew louder outside their shelter. He glanced at Lyra, who was still weak but alert, her eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and determination. They had just started to trust each other, but now they faced a new threat. Jack grabbed his makeshift weapon, a sturdy mining tool, and positioned himself near the door. "Stay behind me," he whispered to Lyra. The footsteps stopped, and a tense silence filled the air. The door burst open, revealing 3 rugged miners, their faces hardened by years of toil and survival. The leader, a burly man with a scar across his cheek, eyed Jack with suspicion. "What do we have here?" he growled, stepping forward. Jack tightened his grip on the tool, his mind racing. "We don't want any trouble," he said, trying to sound calm. "We're just looking for a way off this planet." The leader sneered. "You're harboring an alien. That's trouble enough." He nodded to his men, who spread out, blocking any escape routes. Lyra, sensing the escalating tension, stepped forward. "We mean no harm. My ship crashed, and Jack saved me. We're just trying to survive." The leader laughed harshly. "On this rock? You'll need more than luck for that." He turned to Jack, his expression menacing. "Give us the alien, and we might let you live." Jack's jaw tightened. "No deal. We help each other, or we all go down together." The leader's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, Lyra spoke again. "We know about the abandoned base," she said, her voice steady. "There's technology there that can help us all. We can share it if you help us get there." The miners exchanged glances, their interest piqued. The leader seemed to consider this, weighing his options. "All right," he said finally. "But one wrong move, and you're both dead." With the uneasy truce in place, they set out together. The journey was fraught with tension, each step heavy with mistrust. Jack kept a close eye on the miners, while Lyra scanned the surroundings, looking for any signs of danger. As they navigated the rugged terrain, Lyra began to explain more about the conspiracy she had uncovered. "My people were researching ways to harness the planet's resources," she said quietly, "but something went wrong. The project was abandoned, and the planet was left to decay." Jack listened, his mind piecing together the fragments of the mystery. "So, you're saying this planet was a test site?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Yes, and the technology we find at the base could reveal what happened and why." The leader, overhearing their conversation, snorted. "Sounds like a fairy tale. We've been here for years and found nothing but rock and dust." "Then you haven't looked hard enough," Lyra retorted, a hint of defiance in her voice. Their journey continued in tense silence until they finally reached the hidden base. The structure was partially buried, camouflaged by the planet's harsh environment. They pried open the entrance and stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The base was a stark contrast to the desolate landscape outside. Advanced technology lined the walls, and screens flickered to life as they entered. Lyra moved quickly, accessing the systems with a familiarity that impressed Jack. "We need to find the main control room," she said, leading them deeper into the base. "That's where we'll get the answers we need." The miners, now more curious than hostile, followed closely. The leader kept a wary eye on Jack, but the tension had shifted to cautious cooperation. In the control room, Lyra activated a series of holographic displays. Data and images filled the air, revealing the extent of the research conducted on the planet. Jack watched in awe as the story unfolded before them. "This is incredible," he said, turning to Lyra. "But what went wrong?" Lyra's face darkened. "There was an experiment involving the planet's core. It caused a catastrophic event, forcing the evacuation. The technology here could stabilize the core and prevent further damage." The leader stepped forward, his skepticism replaced by a glimmer of hope. "And you think we can use this tech to fix the planet?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, but it will take all of us working together." Just as they began to formulate a plan, the base's alarm system blared to life. Red lights flashed, and a voice echoed through the corridors. "Intruders detected." Jack's heart sank. "They found us," he said, realizing the rogue miners had tracked them down. "We need to move now." The group sprang into action, gathering supplies and preparing for the imminent confrontation. The uneasy alliance between Jack, Lyra, and the miners would be tested to its limits as they faced their greatest challenge yet. The battle for survival had begun. Jack held the map up to the light, his eyes widening as he realized its significance. This is it, Lyra. This map leads to a hidden base. We need to move quickly. Lyra, still recovering from her injuries, nodded. If this base holds the answers we need, then we have to find it. Let's go. They set off, navigating the harsh terrain with determination. The planet's landscape was unforgiving, littered with rocky outcrops and treacherous crevasses. As they trudged through the desolate wasteland, the bond between them grew stronger. Jack admired Lyra's resilience and intelligence, while Lyra saw in Jack a fierce protector with a heart full of compassion. "Tell me more about your people," Jack asked, breaking the silence as they walked. "Why were you here?" Lyra glanced at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and determination. "My people, the Zarians, were explorers and scientists. We were sent to this planet to study its resources and potential for colonization. But something went wrong. We discovered that the planet was being exploited and then abandoned. We tried to stop it, but, well, you saw what happened." Jack nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "We won't let their sacrifice be in vain. We'll find the truth and make things right." As they neared the location indicated on the map, an old structure came into view. It was partially buried under the shifting sands, its once gleaming walls now dull and corroded. Jack approached cautiously, scanning for any signs of danger. The entrance was hidden behind a large boulder, but they managed to squeeze through a narrow gap. Inside, the base was a labyrinth of corridors and rooms, filled with advanced alien technology and remnants of human presence. The walls hummed with a faint energy, casting an eerie glow. Jack and Lyra moved carefully, exploring each room and documenting their findings. In the main control room, they discovered a series of logs and records. Lyra accessed the system, her fingers dancing over the holographic interface. These logs detail everything. The mining operations, the conspiracy. It's all here. Jack leaned in, reading the entries over her shoulder. They knew about the planet's instability. They exploited it anyway, and when things went south, they abandoned it and covered it up. Lyra's expression hardened. "We need to expose this. People need to know the truth." Suddenly, the base's alarm system activated, blaring through the halls. "Intruders detected," a robotic voice intoned. Jack's heart raced. The miners must have tracked us. They heard footsteps approaching rapidly. Jack grabbed Lyra's hand. "We need to move, now." They ran through the maze of corridors, seeking an exit. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Jack spotted a vent and quickly removed the grate. "In here," he whispered urgently. They crawled through the narrow passage, the sound of their pursuers echoing behind them. Emerging into a storage room, Jack sealed the vent and scanned the area for weapons or anything that could aid their escape. He found an old plasma rifle and handed it to Lyra. "Can you use this?" Lyra nodded, her eyes steely. "I can." The door to the storage room burst open, and rogue miners flooded in. Jack and Lyra took cover behind crates, returning fire. The battle was intense, the confined space amplifying every sound. Jack's training kicked in, his movements precise and calculated. Lyra, despite her injuries, fought valiantly, her aim deadly. "Keep pushing forward," Jack shouted over the din. "We can't let them corner us." They moved methodically, clearing a path through their attackers. Jack's heart pounded, not just from the exertion but from the stakes. This wasn't just about survival, it was about justice for both humans and Zarians. As they fought their way towards the exit, Jack noticed a control panel on the wall. "Cover me?" he called to Lyra. She laid down, suppressing fire as Jack hacked into the system, overriding the base's lockdown protocols. "Got it?" he yelled as the doors slid open. They sprinted out, the cold air hitting their faces like a slap. The rogue miners were relentless, but Jack and Lyra's determination was unyielding. Reaching a safer distance, they paused to catch their breath. "We need to destroy this base," Jack said, panting. "We can't let them use this technology against us." Lyra nodded in agreement. There's a self-destruct mechanism in the control room. We just need to activate it. With no time to waste, they doubled back, slipping past the miners who were regrouping for another assault. They reached the control room, and Lyra quickly initiated the self-destruct sequence. 5 minutes until detonation, the system announced. Jack and Lyra dashed through the corridors, avoiding the miners and making their way to the surface. As they emerged from the base, a massive explosion rocked the ground, sending a plume of debris skyward. Jack looked at Lyra, a mix of exhaustion and relief on his face. We did it. Now, let's get out of here. They moved towards the horizon, the hidden base now a memory. Their journey was far from over, but they had taken a crucial step towards uncovering the truth and forging a new alliance. Jack's pulse quickened as the alarm echoed through the base, reverberating off the metallic walls. The shrill sound heightened his senses, sharpening his focus. We need to move now, he shouted to Lyra, his voice barely audible over the blaring siren. They scrambled through the dimly lit corridors, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. Jack, over here. Lyra's voice was a beacon of clarity amidst the chaos. She had found a small room stocked with advanced alien weaponry and tools. Jack's eyes widened at the sight this could be their salvation. Grab everything you can carry, Jack ordered, his tone urgent but steady. They equipped themselves with strange yet intuitive devices, the alien technology seamlessly integrating with their movements. As they prepared for the inevitable confrontation, Jack's mind raced, formulating a strategy. The rogue miners burst into the base, their heavy boots pounding against the floor. Jack and Lyra took defensive positions, their backs against the cold metallic walls. The first miner appeared at the entrance, his expression a mix of anger and surprise as he saw Jack aiming a sleek alien weapon at him. Back off, or you'll regret it, Jack warned, his voice unwavering. The miner hesitated, giving Jack the crucial seconds he needed. With a swift motion, he fired the weapon, a beam of light striking the miner and sending him sprawling backwards. The battle erupted in earnest. Jack and Lyra fought side by side, their movements synchronized as if they had trained together for years. The alien technology they wielded gave them an edge, but the miners were relentless, driven by greed and desperation. The confined space turned the fight into a brutal, close-quarters struggle. Jack, behind you! Lyra shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. Jack spun around just in time to block a miner's attack, the force of the blow jarring his arm. He retaliated with a fierce counterstrike, knocking the miner unconscious. As the fight continued, Jack's determination grew. He could feel the weight of their mission pressing down on him. This was not just about survival. It was about preventing a catastrophe. They had to succeed no matter the cost. Suddenly, a deafening crash shook the base. A section of the ceiling collapsed, cutting off their escape route. Dust and debris filled the air, and Jack's heart sank. They were trapped. We're not done yet, Lyra said, her voice resolute. She activated a device that emitted a powerful energy shield, protecting them from falling debris. We can still make it. With renewed determination, they pressed on, pushing through the chaos. Jack could see the control room up ahead, its reinforced doors their last hope. We need to get in there, he said, pointing towards the doors. They reached the control room, but the door was locked, the access panel flickering with error messages. I'll handle this, Lyra said, her fingers flying over the alien interface. Seconds felt like hours as she worked, the sounds of the battle growing closer. Finally, the door slid open. They rushed inside, sealing it behind them. The control room was a stark contrast to the rest of the base, its sleek design and advanced technology a testament to the alien craftsmanship. Jack's eyes were drawn to a central console, its display showing a critical malfunction in the planet's core stabilization system. This is it, Jack said, his voice filled with grim realization. If we don't fix this, the whole planet is going to tear itself apart. Lyra nodded, her expression determined. I'll guide you through the process. We don't have much time. Jack moved to the console, following Lyra's instructions with precision. His hands flew over the controls, inputting commands and adjusting settings. The room hummed with energy as the system responded, but it was clear they were racing against the clock. The rogue miners outside were relentless, battering at the door. Jack's concentration was unwavering, his focus absolute. "Almost there," Lyra said, her voice a steady anchor amidst the chaos. A sudden, violent tremor shook the base, nearly knocking Jack off his feet. The system's alarms blared, the displays flashing with warnings. "We need more power," Lyra said, her voice tight with urgency. Jack spotted an auxiliary power switch across the room. "I'll get it," he said, dashing towards it. He reached the switch and pulled it down with all his strength. The lights in the room dimmed momentarily before surging back to full brightness, the console's displays stabilizing. "We've got it," Lyra said, relief evident in her voice. The system's stabilizing. But just as victory seemed within reach, the control room door exploded inward, the rogue miners pouring through. Jack turned to face them, his expression steely. "Get behind me," he told Lyra, raising his weapon. The miners hesitated, their confidence faltering in the face of Jack's resolve. "This planet is under our protection now," Jack said, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Leave or face the consequences." The miners glanced at each other, the tension palpable. Then, slowly, they began to back away, the fight leaving their eyes. They had been defeated, not just by force, but by the unwavering spirit of Jack and Lyra. As the miners retreated, Jack turned back to the console, ensuring the stabilization process was complete. The alarms silenced, and a sense of calm settled over the control room. Jack looked at Lyra, a mixture of exhaustion and triumph in his eyes. "We did it," he said, his voice filled with quiet pride.